Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. As always, it is Nick here, back with your daily crypto news and analysis. And today we are going to be talking about Ripple and XRP. But more importantly, we are going to be talking about the basis of a $100 to $1,000 plus XRP, and at some point in time, $10,000. Now, I have a few of these videos on my channel, actually. I do talk about this. I discussed it multiple times. Now, obviously, a lot of people on this channel know that my price targets and things like that in terms of XRP going to $100 to $1,000 are more so long term. But could we be possibly seeing a $100 to $1,000 XRP this bull run? That is the $100 million question. So, with further ado, let's talk about the base point behind this. Now, for anybody who was here during the 2017-2018 bull run, you'd obviously know that XRP loves to run last. In fact, XRP ran last during the 2017-2018 bull run. There was a few altcoins that followed through after the fact, like EOS and some others. But for the most part, XRP topped out around January, started to move really in December. The significant thing about XRP is the percentage run that it actually did during that time, which was roughly about 60,000%. Some say 80,000%. It's all kind of over the place depending on the exchange you're using and a few other factors. But overall, we already know that during the all-time chart here, we look at this massive price explosion that happened here, and we kind of think, well, what would happen if we did repeat that? First off, we've seen a little bit of a breaking point today for XRP. It actually hit $1.21. On my exchange, it hit $1.23. Now, of course, in terms of XRP jumping out of that, we still need to break up some significant leeway to actually break above the all-time high. Now, do I believe that $100 to $1,000 XRP is in store for us this bull run? Ultimately, I would say no, realistically speaking. But could there be some major catalyst events? Obviously. Listen, we talk about this SEC case a lot. We talk about regulatory clarity coming into this space. If regulatory clarity comes to this space, XRP will obviously be one of the few, and I say very few, assets who actually get regulatory clarity. So I would say with all of the speculation behind XRP, obviously a lot of people know about Ripple and XRP. We also talk about the Ripple IPO after they win the SEC case. We talk about the US-based customers rejoining the team, launching ODL, services around the world. And of course, we do see speculative FOMO from the retail individuals that were in XRP at some point in time or heard about it or are hearing about it from, something like, CNBC or Fox Business or something like that where it does FOMO in retail. That will significantly increase the price. Now, before we fully jump into this video and really kind of talk about this, I do want to address the fact that a lot of people think that market cap matters in this game, and trust me, it does to an extent. But for something like XRP, we look at the base point behind market cap and we say, well, if it could hit a $1 trillion to $1 quadrillion market cap, is that really logical or realistic? And the base point behind that is yes, because what it is going to achieve in terms of the efficient standpoint and solve in terms of the nostril problem with liquidity, that is a huge use case that you can't really put a dollar figure on. In fact, it is actually a priceless, use case. You cannot put a value on that. But I will say this. By the time that we get to those main target points, most people would have already been sold out, bought out, or in fact, guess what happens? A monetary value gets put on XRP from the government, and in fact, you are already bought out by the government in terms of your XRP holdings. This will most likely happen at some point in time if we do get to that point. But of course, we are obviously going to have to wait to see that, unfold. I'm not going to be a tinfoil hat wearer and tell you guys that that's happening tomorrow, next week, whatever. But I will say this. At some point in time, I do see XRP being easily a $1 trillion asset, a $100 trillion asset at some point in time, and even upwards of possibly a 1 quadrillion asset if it could achieve what it's trying to do. So before we fully jump into this video and talk about what I suppose could happen, let's first off address the idea that I do have a website, NCashOfficial.com, which includes all my exit strategies and all that kind of stuff. This is key to really kind of understanding my base point behind my XRP holdings this bull run, because I obviously am going to take profit along the way, and my main target point is $10 for my main target point. And those profits will obviously bleed back into XRP at some point in time. But of course, if you guys are looking forward to seeing something like that, you guys could obviously go to my website, website, NCashOfficial.com, for that. You guys aren't obligated to purchase anything. I'm just letting you guys know if anybody was interested in that. Now, first and foremost, I will address the main elephant in the room, which is this chart by Kevin Cage. Now, I've actually addressed this chart in the past before. In one of my videos, I talked about this. But I do want to reiterate the idea on the 66,000% run on XRP. Listen, I'm in no way saying that this is unlogical or unrealistic. In fact, I do think that this could happen. We talk about the 2022 timeframe for the SEC lawsuit to actually kind of, go away, or, some sort of settlement happening, and then we look at these targets of, $1.07, a $2.40, $5 at some point in time. We have to break the all-time high, obviously, but then we look at the point of, getting to this $1,100 range, which is all the way up here at the top time fractal. And of course, we talk about the $100 to $500 XRP, the 589, if you will. Obviously, those numbers are more so after 2023, which is a little bit more logical in my sense to actually get to those targets. In fact, I've always said by 2025, this entire scene is going to be reshaped fully. Now, do I think that the $10,000 XRP target point is more so realistic? Absolutely not. I don't think that we get to $10,000 anytime soon. In fact, I think that inflation rates are going to be astronomically high by that point, but it will most likely be by 2030 where we do see $10,000 per XRP, if that is the case. Now, let's talk about some things that are happening to get us to these main target points of possibly, $10 to $15 to $50 to whatever the case may be. I've always settled on the $10 to $15 range by the end of this bull run, which I think is more so logical, but of course, anything is possible. This is crypto. So let's talk about Zamio or Zam.io. This is one of those significant projects that are bridging real-world capital to the new economy. We've seen these a lot. In fact, we see this a lot with Alliance Block. We see it with many other projects as well, being a bridge for traditional finance, centralized finance, and even traditional to DeFi, stuff like that. There's a lot of things happening in that space, and I think that it is great to mention that this is also a huge use case in its own self. Now, this is a pretty cool token, Zam token, if you will, and here are all of those bridges to crypto, to the real world, to all of that stuff. It's very interesting. I think that we will be in a world of, digitized finance at some point in time, and I think a lot of these assets do play a huge role in this. Now, you might be wondering, why am I even talking about Zam token, right? What is this? Why are we even talking about it? Well, we're talking about it because of this right here. Infrastructure to bring a new era of finance. Today, traditional financial markets dwarfs that of blockchain. The global stock market is valued at $95 trillion, while the entire crypto market cap is only about $2 trillion. Pretty interesting, right? Transitioning into the new decentralized economy requires duplicating trillions of capital into blockchain. If only 1% of stocks are located, or I shouldn't say located, locked in DeFi, sorry about that, over $950 billion in capitalization could be added to crypto markets. Now, of course, we talk about 1% of stocks, are locked in DeFi. I think that that number actually grows astronomically at some point in time, just my overall base point. But again, 1% is totally fine. That's $950 billion. In fact, let's actually come over here. I don't have it open, but let's go to Coin Perspective. Now it's going to open Hedera Hashgraph because Hedera is my other choice of, an asset being the long-term hold. But when we're looking at this and we look at a $950 billion asset, look at what price target that would put us at, about $20, which is pretty cool. I think that that's really interesting, and I think that it's very realistic as well, considering the fact that I think that this is an easy $1 trillion asset. But that's not the base point. How do we get this, and why is, Ripple, again, being talked about with Zam? Well, it's fairly interesting. When we come down to the main point on what they're doing, first off, there's a lot of stuff to talk about. I'm not gonna, talk too much about this asset overall, but this is pretty cool in terms of monetizing your stocks without selling them, unlocking the value of your stocks, and seize every trading opportunity in the blockchain economy. Zam is doing pretty cool things. I actually think that this is a fairly interesting token, to be completely honest with you, but I am more so concerned about their overall roadmap. Now, check this out. This is where things get interesting. In fact, we talk about the 2022 roadmap, right? If we go over here to, here we go, 1 second, let me hit Control F, and we go down to Ripple, here we go. So Q2 of 2022, integration with RippleNet. Now you might be wondering, well, what are they doing with RippleNet at this point? Well, essentially, we're talking about these major bridges. We're talking about tokenization. Obviously, with Ripple, could we see a massive use case unfold from this and actually achieve that 1% goal that they have of this massive era of finance, or this new era of finance. I personally think that this is going to be a pretty cool base point, especially considering the fact that we look at Alliance Block actually partnering with Flare as well. That happened yesterday, I believe. Yes, Alliance Block is a bridge from traditional finance to DeFi, and this is more so a bridge with centralized finance to DeFi. A lot of these assets are partnering and actually kind of connecting on the same ecosystem as Ripple and XRP. Now, in that base point, I think that this is going to be a huge integration, and I think that this integration is going to unlock a ton of potential for ZAM. I think that it's also going to unlock the idea on getting to this point faster than expected. And again, like I said, that would bring us to about $20. Now, you might be wondering, well, all right, that gives us to that gets us to $20, but what about $100, which would be at a $4.7 trillion market cap? Well, like I said, at $100, that's if we get that major catalyst event happening, this bull run where we do see, for an example, the SEC lawsuit getting, thrown out, Ripple wins, the Ripple IPO, US-based customers rejoining the team, massive FOMO, XRP having regulatory clarity, bringing clarity to the space as well. That's going to be huge, right? But there's also a lot of other things happening behind closed doors, because if this doesn't happen, say for so $100 doesn't happen by, 2022. Say for so we have to wait till 2023. That's totally fine. In fact, ISO 222 goes live in 2022 by this time. That's the main point of it, or the main goal date. But realistically speaking, what are we talking about in terms of ISO 222 adoption? I mean, it's overall the banking scene. It's going to be disruptions in the banking scene. I do want to talk to you guys about the banking scene. Okay, so with ISO 222 in mind, with the banking scene in mind, with digitization and tokenization of pretty much everything, we talk about SABB, right? Which we've seen some innovation happen today with, Ripple. They obviously opened another use case with USD, real-time settlements and stuff like that, which is very interesting. But that's not what I'm focused on. In fact, I'm focused on their corporate and institutional banking scene that they're in. There's a lot of use cases. There's a lot of things behind closed doors here. But mainly, these are focused on hundreds of millions of dollars in markets. In fact, we do see here SAR, which is their overall currency, 200 million and 700 million. That's their annual sales between those two numbers. 700 million SAR is roughly about almost 200 million USD. So these are pretty much high-profile markets and high-profile clients. Now, there's a lot of these individuals as well. If we're talking about the large corporates, this is $200 million again, and a lot of this is going to flow over, well, we already know, RippleNet. The funny thing about this is that this is all talking about liquidity too. In fact, they're talking about global liquidity and cash management. That's their main focus point in terms of liquidity management. Now, how do you think things are going to be working in, another 5 to 10 years in terms of liquidity? Do you honestly think that we're still going to be using Nostro Vostro accounts on the Swift network? Realistically speaking, comment down below. I really want to know your answers, because that is such a bad way of actually doing things. Pre-approved garbage accounts that are, taking 3 to 5 days plus to settle. Not only that, but $30 to $100 plus fees per transaction. I just seen a thing the other day where somebody, it was an old, little article, but it was something like moving $30 million worth of XRP settled in 3 seconds at 30 cents for the fee. That's the future, not $30 to $100 per transaction with 3 to 5 plus days of settlements. Then we obviously talk about SMEs as well. There's a lot of problems here. Now, the best part about this is we do see here cash concentration benefits include managing group liquidity centrality, cutting borrowing costs, making administration easier, balancing concentration but means better interest rates. Again, there's a lot of things in terms of liquidity use cases here. But what do you think could, help them benefit in terms of the liquidity, base point? I know, on-demand liquidity. Why do you think they are pretty much channeling RippleNet and Ripple products? It's essentially because they are going to prosper into the new age faster than most. Not only that, but they are going to see incredible efficiency as well as a lot of revenue savings from, those fee bases and stuff like that. There's a lot of use cases in the closed doors with Ripple that a lot of people don't really kind of look at. Now, I do want to talk to you guys about Q&T as well, because when we're talking about the banking scene, we talk about Q&T. Now, this goes back to May 10th. In fact, I've seen this article before, or not article, but this chat before. In fact, somebody pasted or copied and pasted this into my Discord one day, and I've been thinking about it pretty much ever since. Now, we talk about, a lot of things happening with Quant and Ripple. In fact, we talk about the digital pound. If you guys missed this, essentially, Ripple joined the Digital Pound Foundation, designing a path for a CBDC. Now, a lot of names were mentioned on here, but the main two that I focused on, of course, was XRP with Ripple and, of course, Quant Networks with Q&T. This is actually a pretty cool partnership, and I think that this is going to allow a lot of interoperability to really kind of bring those bridges to CBDCs, and this, of course, will allow for a lot of global transfer of wealth and money all day long. And, of course, we're talking about 80% of central banks are actively exploring some sort of, some form of sovereign-backed cryptocurrency, including CBDCs. Listen, we are so early in this game. A lot of people want to get rich overnight. A lot of people want to see XRP go to $10,000 overnight. It's not going to work like that. I'm sorry to cut it to you guys, but it's just not. In fact, we're seeing a lot of things being built in front of us right now, similar to, building pyramids. They weren't built overnight. Rome wasn't built in a day. This won't be built in a day. But this is going to be huge, and of course, we already know what's going to come from this. Generational wealth, financial freedom, and so forth. But let's look at this, right? So, Quant is definitely worth, taking a look into. Of course it was. A lot of potential for Ripple and Quant to benefit from each other, of course. Quant seems to be heavily involved in the SDX in Europe, which is maybe comparable to Ripple's involvement in SBI in Asia. And SBI and SDX are already exploring some pretty high-level ventures together. We'll post more. And of course, they're talking about Overledger 2.0 providing interoperability to Ethereum, XRP, and Bitcoin mainnets. Of course, Overledger is huge. We've talked about it. We discussed it. In fact, Quant, or Q&T, I was talking about during the summer when it was around $40 and around $30. It was a great asset to hold at that point, and it's still a great asset even now, with a lot of upside potential in the future as well. It's going to be a great asset. But I'm more so concerned about the fact that they're talking about SDX in Europe here. Now, the thing about SDX is, yeah, sure, it's cool, but I'm more so focused on SIA, SIA. In fact, I've broken down SIA and how we get to a massive price target for Q&T, because when we're talking about SIA, well, we go over to this medium, which is Blockchain Brad interview with Quant Network CEO, 570 banks re-architecting the financial system, DeFi, or re-articulating. I'm sorry. I can't read right now. It's like 5 a.m., but it doesn't matter. When we're talking about this is going to change the entire DeFi space, expanding to Asia, partnered with Oracle, connecting Binance Chain to enterprises, telecoms, patents, and much more. There's a lot of things to kind of talk about in regards to this, but the main focus point is interoperability here, because this is going to connect 570 plus banks. It's all going to talk about bridging, central finance to DeFi, of course, and it's going to pretty much march us forward on in time. In fact, we see that they are talking about IBM as well with Stellar. I've heard that hasn't gone too well lately, so we are looking into it, because they're talking about getting to the point where things are working in a swift way. And I don't mean swift as in the Swift network. I'm talking about, things being able to connect in a plug-and-play fashion that's going to help these banks pretty much prosper into a new digital age. That's going to be easier not only for the banks to do, but also for us to kind of march into that digital age of finance, because we want this to be as easy and as secure and as easy as possible in terms of getting to that point faster than most people expect. We want it to be a plug and play. We actually see here every bank has a payment gateway. Does SWIFT, domestic payments, credit cards, international payments, whatever the gateway does, and SIA runs that infrastructure, secure and regulated by the Bank of Italy, complies to the highest level of security, and I ran a similar environment in the UK on behalf of the Bank of England. Now, I just want to say the Bank of England here. We're talking about 570 plus banks working with SIA chain. All right, this is going to be a massive implementation of 3 blockchains specifically: Corda, Hyperledger Fabric, and Ethereum. These are all gateways that they have tested multiple times. In fact, we do see here we're bringing interoperability to it to create cross-platform banking applications, core banking applications. This is re-architecting. Sorry, I don't know why I want to say articulating. It's weird. The banking system that use Overledger and all the different blockchains, but more importantly, to allow all these banking systems to connect and interoperate. So this is a big deal. You're taking closed, secure banking networks and allowing them to interoperate to create a new multi-chain applications to work across cross-border networks. Now, all of this plays a huge role in with Ripple, because when we're talking about these huge banking systems, yeah, sure, maybe they're not working with, XRP and Ripple themselves or anything like that, but we do know that Q&T is working with Ripple in terms of, guess what? Interoperability through the banking scene. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were working with Ripple this entire time. In fact, when we're talking about the main focus point in interoperability with CBDCs, we know that it is a huge selling point to the G7. In fact, they mentioned it as a core implementation that they need for CBDCs to actually work. We actually see here, as more and more central banks implement CBDCs, interoperability, privacy, and complete sovereignty will be key to enable central banks to move money cost effectively, reliably, and instantly. It is a focus point. Interoperability is going to allow for plug and play and to message each other in terms of DLTs fairly easily to transact on a day-to-day basis. It's a very important key aspect for CBDCs to actually have. Now, of course, in the base point behind all of this, we talk about the ODL service as a massive selling point. In fact, we do see here Brad Garling saying, Ripple and Brad Garling House. Ripple is using XRP to solve a global payments problem. There's literally $27 trillion of money parked around the world between banks in order for them to settle payments between themselves. Now, we're talking about a lot of this stuff, and we're talking about what's happening in the world, and we talk about, of course, nostril accounts, but we also talk about many other use cases that are going to allow for a lot of, other use cases to be, provided throughout the Web 3.0 scene, as well as in terms of liquidity and all this other banking, finance stuff. There's a lot of things behind closed doors. Now, I go back to SABB because when we talk about all of the money and we talk about, a lot of the money that's going to flow, of course, $27 trillion isn't the only focus point. There's a lot of other money. In terms of all of the money we do see here, oil is one of the main focus points. Now you might be wondering, well, why oil? Why is that even a focus point? Well, we talk about, SABB. If we're talking about what's happening around the world, first off, we do know that a lot of our oil and infrastructure actually comes from overseas, and we have a ton of overseas, clients and base points as well. I wouldn't be surprised if SABB had connections to corporate clients or institutions that deal in oil that would like to transact over XRP with the Ripple net, because that will save them a ton of money. Again, we're talking about large connections here, but also there's a lot of other things on here in terms of, CBDCs, supply chains, all of this massive amounts of money in terms of these major markets that could possibly flow over XRP. And I say possibly because nothing is set in stone yet in terms of getting to all of the money. But I will say this, there's a lot of things in mind for this. We talk about the nostril bank accounts. This is a large amount. This is 27 trillion. Like I said, going back to this tweet here, 27 trillion. That's where that 27 trillion comes from. But of course, we talk about SWIFT, $5 trillion a day. That's pretty huge, right? That's a large amount. Now, of course, we do see here XRP's market cap at the time of this was 30 billion. Currently, it's about almost like 60 trillion. Or 60 billion. Western Union, of course, moved between customers, $80 billion per annum. And then, of course, global non-cash transactions, 577 billion. So these are like the small scale, right? These aren't nothing too crazy. But these are where the big numbers come from, which lead us to the global transfer market. This is SWIFT, Fedwire, CHIPS, Western Union, MoneyGram, TransferWise, all that kind of stuff, which we already know is getting reiterated with ISO 20022 adoption. And this is a large amount of money. This is $2.7 quadrillion. This is where all of the money comes into play. Of course, transacting and utilizing a lot of these, nostril accounts. This is all going to be that massive transfer of wealth. This is where all of the money kind of comes into play, which is all back to this. And when we're talking about XRP, do I think that we get to the point where we have all of the money? I think that it is more so logical to think about XRP as being the bridge currency, of course, to really kind of bridge everything together, which will obviously allow almost all of the money, because I do know that there's other bridges in this market and they could prosper along with us. But we do know a lot of this money will flow over something like XRP and Ripple. And if we get, a fraction of this, that would be huge. Say for so we just get 100 trillion, okay? At $100 trillion in terms of a market cap, which I know a lot of people think that that's crazy to think about, but we would be at $2,123. $100 trillion from a $2.7 quadrillion overall market, that's not that crazy to think about. And this is the main focus point of Ripple and XRP themselves, by the way. This is not me speculating and saying, hey, they're coming for Nostro Vostro accounts because I think they are. No, that's always been their end goal. This is their end goal overall. And we're seeing things actually happen around the world in terms of the on-demand liquidity base point that's playing perfectly into this. But also, we go back to even 2019. Okay, and this is the comparison between two most popular cross-border payment networks. In fact, we're talking about RippleNet and Swift GPI. Now, of course, Swift has undergone some updates since now, or since then, sorry. And this is the battle for $150 trillion, just so you guys know. And when we look at $150 trillion, hey, look at that, $3,000. Now, there's a lot of things to actually kind of break down here, and I'm not going to break it down and read everything that you do see here. In fact, I just want to show you guys and reiterate a few things. Which is obviously this right here. Instant payments, yes, yes. Instant settlement, yes and no. And I just want to say, a lot of people think that instant settlement's not that big of a deal, but it is. Instant settlement is the biggest focus point. How do you think they achieve instant payment? It's not from instant settlement on Swift side. No, that is on Ripple side. How do they get that instant payment? Through a pre-funded account. That is that locked liquidity. That is a terrible way to do things. In fact, we do see our liquidity sourcing. On the left, we do see yes. On the right, we do see no. Now, of course, a lot of this is going to be broken down in the fact that how much money could actually flow over Ripple at at scale. Well, that's the point of being, at the base point, just $150 trillion. $150 trillion is the base focus point. And here's the transfer speed. 4 seconds, 5 minutes to, of course, 1 hour, or 1 day, I mean. And then, of course, we do see our FX rates determined by bank, of course, kind of the same. Data by directional, undirectional, or unidirectional, sorry. Technology, blockchain, of course, through the interledger protocol. And, of course, when we talked about interledger protocol, it spreads widely to many other markets. And of course, we do see the messaging service from Swift, decentralized, centralized, and of course, we do see our consensus and batch clearing and settlements, and then of course, we do see currencies as well. So there's a lot of other things in terms of fiat and currencies. Now, of course, here is the last overall infographic. We do see the key features and advantages, and of course, the disadvantages as well. Now, a lot of these disadvantages have changed drastically. A lot of the advantages have changed drastically. A lot of this is old news, or I shouldn't say old news, but old graphics and old information overall. So just be aware of that. So a lot of these have changed drastically. Like, for example, the volatility of the native asset XRP. Technically, we already know that we could pretty much have stable coins on the XRP ledger that could solve a lot of these problems. We do see slow adoption of DLT by banks and in financial institutions due to regulatory compliance, which we do know is changing at a rapid pace now. We got to talk about the fact that this is over at this point 2 years old. So in 2 years, a lot of things have moved fairly fast. So just imagine in another 2 years how fast things will have moved. So overall, to sum this up, to really kind of sum it up for everybody who is watching this video, there is a ton of information to really kind of look at. But we look at the base point of the fact that when we're looking back at Kevin Cage's chart, I know it's going to take a little bit of time to load, but I want to talk about the Zamio stuff again. This is a significant amount of money, of course, and this is happening in 2022, quarter two, which again, by quarter two, I still think that we will be moving in a bull run pattern. But when we're looking back at the past percentage pumps, we could obviously see, that $10 to $50 to $100 to $500 to even $1,000 at scale during the 2023 and onward pattern is potentially possible. For example, we look at the main focus point on where we are at now currently, and we look back here, and this could technically be us here, or it could be here. We don't know specifically where we are on the 2017-2018 roadmap, except for the fact that we could potentially be around this point here already. But it wouldn't make sense considering the fact that our price point from the bottoming stage in March of 2020 is around this point, and our main focus point was during the 2000 or the SEC lawsuit, which around this point we were at. So, in terms of the percentage fractals, do I think that $100 to $1,000 is possible this bull run? I wouldn't say it's more so necessary in the idea on getting to that point, but I will say this. Okay, during a utility-based bull market or bull run in crypto, which I think that we get to by 2025, to be honest with you, I think that XRP is not going to have too much, room in front of it to really kind of, or I shouldn't say room, obstacles in front of it to actually get stopped in terms of price appreciation. There's going to be so much ODL adoption. There's going to be so much utility, flowing through this market. It's going to be a lot different. There's not going to be a 4-year bull run or bear market. It's going to be an extremely different market. So XRP at $100 to $1,000, in my mind, is inevitable. After $1,000 plus, we don't know where it could go. Could it go to $10,000? Yeah, it's possible. But I'm more so dead set on the idea on, being $500 to $1,000 to even, $100, somewhere in that ballpark number. Of course, that's not the end goal because we talk about $10,000 being a logical base point. Like I said, at $10,000 in terms of XRP, this is the focus point, $470.8 trillion. Do I think that that is illogical from an overall standpoint on what I've just talked to you guys about in all of this research? Yes, I do think it's possible, especially when we look back on all of the money being $2.7 quadrillion. I think that that's possible, especially if XRP is going to grasp a large amount of that. Now, in terms of market cap, for a lot of people who are watching this, they're probably going to be like $470.8 trillion. That's astronomical. That's crazy considering the fact that we are at a $2 trillion evaluation for crypto. But we are extremely early. That's the problem here. A lot of people are sidetracked by the idea that, market cap means so much, but it's really not an important factor. In fact, market cap does not mean money invested. No, market cap just means the value of an asset at a certain price. And at $10,000, we would be worth $470.8 trillion. So, with that being said, I hope that you all enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on. If you guys want more free content, you guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord down in the description below. As always, I hope that you all have a beautiful day or a beautiful night, wherever you guys are in this beautiful world. This has been Nick. Peace out, guys.